It has definitely been a while. How is everyone doing? I got a lot on my mind that I want to share and discuss and all of the things. And I'll go ahead and give my disclaimer. Might be an itty bitty doggy that comes through here. Let me make sure my connection's good. Yes. Might be a little bitty doggy that comes through here. So if you hear me doing this thing, the little snapping thing, then you already know, like, he's doing something he has no business doing. But anyway, I have a lot of things on my mind, like so many things on my mind, because I have really just been, let's see if I can get closer. There we go. I have really been, dare I say, engrossed, possibly obsessed with all of the new shows and the new information about JFK Jr. and his relationship and marriage with Carolyn Bessette Kennedy and the Kennedys and yada, yada, yada. Hey, and as somebody who definitely considers himself to be, as I said, a Kennedy aficionado, I have a lot of things that I want to say about this because I feel like there are some real lessons that can be learned. And if you haven't been paying attention, I believe it was like this, what do I want to call it? I guess it's a series, right? On Netflix, Hulu. Thank you for the gifts. Love Story. That's it. And I'm trying to remember what, I think it's on Hulu. Hulu is now showing Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. And of course, that has dredged up a lot of memories for people like myself. I actually lived through the tragic ending of their lives. That was a rough week. I'm going to be the first one to tell you, I thought JFK Jr. was super duper fine, but that's not what I want to really get into. I mean, we'll get into that in a minute. Like I said, I have so many things on my brain, right? Because I've been fascinated with the Kennedys for most of my life, right? And from the time I could kind of dig into history, I think it's really my mother's fault. She went to the Dominican Republic as a member of the Peace Corps. And because of that, I've always been fascinated with why. Like, why did you do that? And so, because she went in at wartime, she went to be a nurse educator and to educate the people there about their options and how to have better health in their families. And I'm like, okay, it's the 60s. What exactly compelled you to go to the Peace Corps? And she literally said to me, oh, well, President Kennedy asked us to. Now, what now? President Kennedy asked you all. Yeah. In his speech, he didn't call her personally or anything, but she took to heart the words that he said about asking not what you can do ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And so this meant that this probably 20-something-year-old Black chick, packs up and goes to the Dominican Republic for 2 years. And it's so interesting because when she got back, they get some sort of a stipend. I don't know if they still do that or not, but they get some sort of a stipend. And at the time she got her stipend, it was enough money that her mom had to call a associate to accompany her to the bank. What? Yeah. It was that time. It was that type of climate, right? So, again, I've looked at all of the specials about Camelot and President Kennedy's marriage and his extramarital activities. And, I've always been so fascinated with the fact that President Kennedy was a very sick man. Not sick like, twisted, not like he'd be in the files, but he was a very sick man. And I always found it fascinating that for all of his physical ailments that he actually found time to be, a wee bit of a, what do you call it? 403. Because I'm like, his back didn't even work. Like, okay. Sir, priorities much, but you know, again, I'm not gonna dog out President Kennedy. I just always found that fascinating because he had something called Addison's, which I think in the 21st century, we'd probably see that. And in the 20th century, they probably would have seen that as more of an autoimmune disorder. He was highly susceptible. He was immunocompromised for the longest time. He had back injuries that even I think until his last breath really impacted his quality of life. And I'm like, in the midst of all that, plus running the country and averting the Cuban crisis, I don't know if we can say the M word. I don't know. I haven't been here in so long. He still found, you know, the capabilities to, be a 403. I mean, is that right? 304? 304. He still found the capabilities. I guess where they say is, hey, where there's a will, there's a way. So, I mean, he absolutely made a way. Let me adjust this a little bit because I feel like I'm like talking up like this. It's kind of crazy. So anyway, like I said, but one of the things that I found to be super duper interesting is, you know, the narrative around Joe Kennedy and how he came to this country and how he built his fortune. And, you know, we're gonna start there. We're gonna start there because it's super duper interesting how Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. and Rose Kennedy as his wife established themselves, because you can find documentaries, you can find shows that consider the Kennedys a dynasty. You know, the rise of Camelot, like this to this day, the Kennedys are the closest thing that America has had to a royal family. And I'm like, that is so interesting. And yes, I'm going to put on my brand strategist, communication strategist, marketing strategist hat, because I want you to see why people believed that. I want you to see how they tapped into, oh, I love this word so much, the zeitgeist of the culture, and how the way Joseph Kennedy put things together and strategized the image of his family are tools and tips that you can use right now. So if y'all are ready, just put ready in the comments, because Joseph P. Kennedy was an Irish immigrant, came into this country and made interesting moves with his money and investments, and was able to amass a fortune. And it was a fortune for that time in the 40s and 50s. Definitely a fortune today. Okay, we're talking millions and millions of dollars. He was highly involved in real estate. He was involved in importing English spirits. Can we say that you drink? I don't know. Listen, he did a lot of things and diversified his revenue stream. But when it came to his family, he had one goal, y'all. He had tunnel vision on it. He wanted one of his sons to be the president of the United States. That's it. That's all. And the funny thing is that when you are rich, dare I say, and at that point, we're talking about building wealth, right? Because rich is singular, wealthy is generational. When you have those type of resources, you can make things happen. One of the things that Joseph P. Kennedy did well, now he did a lot of things, y'all. I'm not even gonna be like, woo, Joseph was all that. I'm gonna say he did a lot of things, and I'll just leave it there and feel free to do your own research. But he was very meticulous about the image of his family. Super meticulous about the image of his family. Like, this man worked PR like nobody's business. Do you hear me? Nobody's business. And why does that matter? Because he looked at what America wanted to see and what America thought was so American. Because remember, at this point in time, they are Irish Catholic. And that was its own thing, right? In fact, you'll find data that says it was so important that Kennedy became the first Catholic president. Because as usual in American culture, we find a way to be divided. Now, I could put on my seminarian hat and we could talk about Catholicism and Judaism and how Christianity didn't even exist and da 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 da. We won't do that right now. What we'll talk about is how Joseph P. Kennedy tapped in to Americana as a theme, and using photographs and using imaging and using videos and all of the technology of the time, he was able to position his family as the poster children, if you will, for Americana, the spirit of American, the most American family ever. Now, why did he need to do that? Well, it was a big deal that he was Irish Catholic. It was a big deal. And so in order for them, because this is a plan, guys, he didn't just say, I want my son to be, one of my sons, to be the president of the United States. And then he just sat back and just waited. He didn't manifest it, so to speak. He did his part. And in doing so, positioning them, taking photos of them, laid back and barefoot in Hyannisport on the boat, wearing Ray-Bans, doing all of these things that not only looked progressive, but also looked nice and relaxed. He was a lifestyle marketer before the lifestyle marketing was a thing. Now, am I telling you to be a lifestyle marketer? I am not. I'm telling you that when you set your sights on something, whether it's to serve a group, or to build your business or whatever, it becomes super important that you understand the psychographics of the people you are intending to serve. This is why what we do is so important. This is why I don't allow those of you who say, I'm building a brand, to get any sleep at night, because unless you have the understanding of what brand and marketing really are, you building a brand and out here pandering on Rihanna's internet for likes and comments is not building a brand. When you're building a brand, you're setting out expectation. And so Joe Kennedy set out the expectation that his family, when you saw the Kennedys, you saw wealth, you saw ease, you saw them on the boat, you saw them being very American. They weren't taking pictures with potatoes, and they weren't, wearing, leprechaun suits and da-da-da-da-da. They weren't doing that. They were showing up in a way that their intended audience would recognize them and revere them. That's so important, because you've got founders and leaders who are showing up and they're like, oh, I showed up. But how did you show up? Did you show up in a way that your intended audiences would recognize you? There's a distinct reason why I don't get on camera looking any kind of way, because I don't want to. That's not on brand for me, even in real life. Like, I'm casual right now. Got on leggings and a jean shirt, which is my daddy's jean shirt, which I love, right? But my hair is kind of combed. I don't know. It's kind of combed. It's giving combed adjacent because I didn't feel like putting a whole bunch of curls in it. So I just, you just take the brush and just kind of make things happen, right? Shout out to my stylist, Monica Johnson. But I want you to look at, thank you. I want you to look at and understand the lifestyle marketing strategy of Joseph Kennedy. Now, he had money and means, but that doesn't mean that you can't do what he did to position yourself in front of the people that you're looking to do business with. He couldn't have the Kennedys out here looking any type of way. And yes, I do believe that there are some control factors that go into this. There's a reason why, JFK was married to Jackie. And yes, it was lovely that she was a lovely woman and that she spoke French and that she was cultured and she was well bred and she was intellectual. Yeah, because I want you to go to the White House. Now, let's be clear about something. If you know anything about the Kennedys, JFK was not Joseph's first choice. JFK had an older son. JFK had an older daughter. Guess what? They both unalived. And so he had to move his vision over to the next kid. So it was kind of like, okay, so Joseph Jr. is out of the picture. Okay, so now we're going to go to boom. And in everything that he did, there was a strategy. It was no happenstance. There was strategy and there was resources. Thank you for the likes. There was strategy and there was resources. And so they're not in the digital age. This is 1940, 1950-ish, right? They're not in the digital age. They don't have the ability to go live and talk to their people and repurpose their content and shout out to their, most amazing little sisters. Thank you, Jada West. Check her out, brand outfitter. They didn't have that capability. What they had was advertising, print, photos. And so in using what he got, he used what he got to get what he wanted. He used what he had to get what he wanted. Because one of the key things about political marketing, one of the key, in the psychology of political marketing, that's the direction I'll go in. We like our leaders to look a certain way, sound a certain way, be healthy. And so interestingly enough, with JFK Sr. being as infirmed as he was with his Addison's disease, oftentimes he was in pain. If the American people had really known how sick he was, he would not have been a contender. He was not. But at this point, Joe is out of options. So guess what? JFK, you're up, buddy. And so, of course, as we're looking at this, the idea that Jackie and John Jr. and Caroline and JFK becoming Camelot, becoming the royal family, it was all created. It was all created. What does that tell you? That tells you a few things. It tells you that media is super duper powerful. That tells you that when you set your sights on a goal and you become strategic about it, you can actually win. It tells you that messaging and marketing go a long way and went a long way even in the 1940s and 50s. 1950s is actually when we see the advent of advertising, because I think that is when we get the advent of radio as well as TV. And so now we have the construct of advertising. Feel free to fact check me on that. So he took advantage of the tools that he had in front of him. And it was almost like, exactly, like super powerful. This man is like, we're going to take videos. I can imagine what a video, like how you shot videos in the 50s. Like how big was this? It's probably cameras like walking around like the guy from The Bodyguard. Remember, like he's probably walking around like they're making videos. These videos are getting out. People are seeing them and experiencing them and going, oh, yes, this is amazing. Jacqueline's beautiful. Oh, she speaks French. Ah, da, da, da. Oh my gosh, she's so stylish. She's da, 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 da. And truthfully, even that was strategic, because word on the street is Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis didn't necessarily like to talk a lot. Chef's kiss. But let's start with Joe, because Joe actually, let me tell you something. Joe Kennedy was a lot of things. Many of them I can't even say on this live. But one thing he was determined, and he was deliberate. Down to the wedding day, guys. JFK and Jacqueline's wedding day. Ask me who picked out Jacqueline's dress. Don't worry, I'll wait. Everything Joe did was with intention. She didn't even like the dress, but she wore it. She didn't even like the dress. But everything he did was with intention. The wedding was massive. She didn't want that, but Joe did. Because Joe is not saying, oh, here's my son in love with this wonderful woman, and oh my God, we're celebrating love. Joe is like, here's my son that's going to be president. We have aligned him with a partner that makes sense. She loves him. He loves her eventually. Doesn't stop him from being a 304 though. Yeah. So everybody's going to come to this wedding. This is a big deal. This is a part of my strategic plan. It's all a part of my strategic plan. Every image, a part of my strategic plan. Every interview is a part of my strategic plan. Some things were going wonky for John in the White House. Guess what? Jackie, you're up. Come in here. Start remaking and remodeling this White House. And guess what? We're going to do an interview with you and you're going to walk us through. Yeah, it matters not that you don't even want to talk. Like, yeah, we know you speak French. We don't care. What we need you to do is show up for this interview and walk people through the White House and look stunning. That's the gig. That's the gig. Just show up and look pretty and talk nice. Bring the kids if you want. So much so that I can't find I want to find the year. Joe Kennedy actually has a stroke and loses his ability to speak. Yet and still, the family goes on. Because now they've been socialized and programmed to act in such a way to be mindful. These people are living in a reality show without a reality show even being in existence. The Kennedys were the first American reality show. The first American reality show. The Kennedys were the first American reality stars. Forget the Kardashians. It was the Kennedys. I said what I said. But what that means to you, my dear founder, my dear leader, is that it is an invitation for you to stop allowing things to just happen. I'm not saying you got to control them like Joe. I'm saying that this is the invitation for you to sit with what you are doing and whom you are seeking to serve and to strategize what that looks like. Where do I need to show up? Where do I need to be? Who do I need to speak with? Who do I need to partner with? Not about to talk about that on this platform because you all know how this platform is. Thank you for the gift though, or the viewer or whatever. I'm not even going to do that to myself. So that being said, because I haven't been on here in so long, I don't know what is and is not acceptable. So we're not even going to get into that. But thank you for asking the question and thank you for dropping in. I really appreciate it. But ultimately, it is so interesting, as like I said, I started watching Love Story. As I said earlier, JFK Jr. was super duper fine. Sexiest man alive in 1988. Some of you weren't even born then. I was. And losing him the way, like when they said the plane was missing, I was one of those people that fervently believed, oh yeah, they're going to find them. It's just like Castaway. It's just like Castaway. They're going to find them. And, they got shipwrecked on an island. It's going to be just like Gilligan's Island, like Gilligan's Island. They're going to be rescued. It's going to be fine. Only to find out, I think probably about a week later, that wasn't the case. Hey, how are you? Let me know who, but I still can't answer that question. We don't own this platform, and I haven't been on here long enough to even know what's okay to say, but feel free to message me offline. I'm happy to talk about it. But like I said, ultimately watching and rewatching, because I'm not new to Kennedy history. I'm not new to Kennedy lore. I'm not new to Kennedy stories. I love the Kennedys almost as much as I love Princess Diana and all things British. So I'm not new to this. But it's just interesting now putting it through this lens, right? Of all the things that I know, marketing, all the things I know brand-wise, all the things I know business-wise, all the things I know about advertising. I am no longer teaching on the collegiate level. I have my own learning platform called the COE. Feel free to check out the link in my bio. We do business education, leadership development, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so putting all these things through this lens and saying, this is the Kennedy effect. And this is what you can take from it, whether you're starting out or whether you're restarting or whether you are I hate that word, whether you are growing and expanding the business that you're building. Because the same principles that Joe Kennedy was using in 1940-ish, hold on, let me scroll back up and look at this. I think it's going to be the 40s. Yeah, 40s and 50s. So 1944, Joe Jr. passes away. And then 1946 to 1953, JFK enters politics. So the same premise, is this not insane, guys? The same premises that Joe Kennedy was using in the 1940s are still applicable right now, except you have more tools than he does. Isn't that crazy? You have more tools, which means you can do more. You can do more faster. They're basically the same. Y'all, they're basically the same. And so I normally don't go live on this platform, but I wanted to get this off. I wanted to share this. And of course, I'll be sharing more of this because I need everyone who's listening to this, who's catching it live, who'll catch this on a replay. I need you to understand that strategy is your friend. And a plan is not a strategy. A plan is not a strategy. When we are talking about strategy, we are literally talking about the granular activities, inactions, and actions that it takes in order to reach a particular goal. We're talking about objectives as well as goals. Does that make sense, guys? Y'all let me know if that makes sense. Because you've got people saying, oh, you know, I'm going to go live every day on TikTok at 3 o'clock. Okay. What does that play into long term? Where are you going with that? Because a plan is the plan is the end result a lot of times, right? The strategy is how we get there. I'm planning to go on a trip. Okay. Well, we have to do more than plan to go on a trip. What is necessary for us to reach this destination? I mean, to me, a lot of times the plan versus strategy conversation is a lot like goals versus objectives. Goal is, I want to do, I don't know, 2 million this year. Okay, that's a goal. How do we get there? What are we selling? Whom are we selling it to? Are we selling anything? Are we going into affiliate marketing? It is the means and the methods that allow you to achieve the mission. I swear to God, I've never said that before. Because Joe Kennedy could have literally sat back and said, you know what? I want one of my sons to be the president, and that's that. Now, I'm not going to say that he did everything above board, but he did enough so that it was clear that this was happening. He was making this out. He didn't care which son. He didn't care. After JFK was unalive, Robert, you're up. Let's go. RFK Sr., unalived. Hey, Ted, what you got on it? But see, by the time JFK had unalived, Joe Kennedy couldn't talk. Yet and still, it was ingrained in those individuals to know that this is what we do. The family business is politics. The family business is PR and media. That's what the family business is. So then let's fast forward to JFK. Why are people so fascinated with JFK Jr.? Well, because he is the son of a man who represented and was positioned to represent hope for this nation. That's how he was. That's how JFK was positioned, as hope. Remember, this is the 60s, people. We've got a lot going on. We've got civil rights. We've got all kinds of things, right? So when JFK is unalived, November the 22nd, 1963, why do I have that date imbrued into my brain? Because anyone who was alive on that day, it's pretty much the same feeling I have about June 25th, 2009. Ask anybody who was alive in the 60s where they were when JFK was unalive, and they can tell you implicitly. Much like, fast forward, June 25th, 2009, Ask anybody where they were when Michael Jackson was unalive, and they can tell you. I can tell you exactly where I was. I was in that living room against the wall, turned around, looking at the TV. They said Michael Jackson was rushed to the hospital. In my spirit, I said, he's going to unalive. And I absolutely waited. They said it, and I slid down the wall. Period. Point blank. The end. But this man was, and you know what I really want to know is, given the dark side of Joe Kennedy, how did the Kennedy kids become so open-minded to other groups? People that didn't look like them. I would just be curious, right? So we fast forward to JFK Jr., who is the sexiest man alive in 1988. But as a child, he is imbrued in the brains of a generation who has lost hope. Not fun fact, I'll say interesting fact about JFK Jr. is that when his father was unalive, he was 2 days short of his 3rd birthday. The funeral would occur on his 3rd birthday, which meant a funeral in the daytime, a birthday party in the evening. That I didn't know. But his image of saluting as his father's casket goes by in the funeral procession was burned into the minds of a generation that was now hopeless. Because the Kennedys were positioned as a beacon of hope, of change. This is fresh energy. This is beautiful. This is a young couple coming into the White House, coming into this world that wants to make this world better for real. That's the messaging, babe. That's the messaging. And so now all that we have left after Dallas, because that's exactly how people say it, JFK was unalived November 22nd, 1963 in Dallas. And they say it with, pay attention, they say it with such emphasis as if Dallas is the culprit. Well, we don't have time to discuss who the culprits are, but Dallas is not the culprit. And I'll leave that there. So now this young man is growing up in the spotlight. He was a celebrity from the day he was born. And people are fascinated with him as they continue to be fascinated with his mother. Not so much fascinated with Caroline. Listen, they throw daggers at Dallas. I'm like, okay, ease up. You're a little heavy on the Texas City. Don't do that. But he's trying. His mother wants him to have a normal life, and it's like, his name is JFK Jr. I don't know how normal that's going to be, but it was pretty normal. No Secret Service. He could fall down. He could skin his knee. Do all of these things, him and Caroline. Caroline. And again, there's such hope, right? You know what? I was going to put like a JFK thing behind me and I totally forgot about it, but whatever. There was such hope and such promise being restored. Older generations were like, oh my God, the hope is being restored. Younger generations like, he's fine and okay. And yeah. And so there was such hope being like bestowed upon this young man as he's supposed to do all of this great work. And truthfully, I believe that if he had been left in the world with us, more than likely he would have done some greater works than what he did. Let's talk about what he did do. Now, please understand that JFK Jr. was independently wealthy. At the time of their mother's passing, they were paying $34 million in inheritance taxes. Do you know how much money you have to inherit to pay $34 million in inheritance taxes? Now, I would hope that that was the best they could do in terms of the tax laws and things of that time, but that's a lot. So he's independently wealthy. He can do anything he wants to do, including nothing. And what he does is that he launches a magazine called George. That part. And so George was supposed to be this interesting take on politics. It was supposed to be irreverent and you know, up in the culture and all of these things. And the unfortunate is JFK Jr. did what many founders did, and he had an idea. And he wanted to bring that idea to pass. Again, he's independently wealthy. He could do anything or nothing, and his bank account would be the same. Okay? All right. The mistakes made with George are many, especially when it comes to media. Media is very, very fickle. And at the time of George's release, there were some really interesting things happening in our culture. That is lipstick. I am not bleeding. But what was happening was that, the internet was starting to happen. There were so many opportunities that George could have taken on, but there's also so many things happening with JFK Jr. From his mother's illness to his best friend's illness. And basically, he's a fragmented founder. He's over here, he's over there, he's got feelings, he's dealing with a relationship, da 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 da. So many things. And that happens in the 21st century as well. Did he have a business partner? Yeah. Did the business partner know what they were doing? Not sure, because what we know of George is that it started with great promise. However, it was not positioned to sustain that. And of course, I feel professionally one of the biggest mistakes that was made was positioning JFK Jr. as the head of George. I feel like JFK Jr.'s magazine was a problem. I think if perhaps he had taken a back seat, I think if perhaps he had, as some people say, gone into the media business, because he did this cold. He had no knowledge of how media works. And he goes right into one of the most expensive things to create in media, which is a magazine, a slick magazine at that. Slick magazines are very expensive to print. They're running about 500,000 copies every issue. That's a lot for then, right? That's a lot, period. But it was definitely a lot for then. And so you're in your head probably thinking, okay, we're going to get advertisers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, the writing's going to be good. Listen, media has to meet people in a place that they need to be met. I have never seen an issue of George. I keep saying I'm going to acquire one. I don't know how to get that, but maybe one on eBay or something. But I can pretty much tell you from my experience selling media, from my experience developing media, from my experience working in media, that it's super duper key that the messages in the medium matter to people. And so if you're going to disrupt an industry, it requires a bit of finesse that I don't think either of them had. Couple that with your mother's sickness and eventual passing, your tumultuous relationship, your best friend who now has the C word. It's a lot. It's a lot. Could he have done a better job with more focus? Well, probably not. Finesse. I don't know what I said. Remind me. But he definitely needed, he definitely needed, like most founders, he needed some support that understood, okay, this is what it takes to build a top-selling magazine. This is what it takes. And truthfully, what it probably takes is you not popping out with a magazine and you haven't built an actual audience. I would probably invert it. I probably would have inverted that. But again, we're talking about the 90s. Finesse. Market finesse? Something finesse? I don't know. I forgot. It just fell out of my face. It'll come back to me, maybe. But he really wanted to do something different and fun and new. And to do that, you almost have to skate in a Trojan horse, right? Of what's familiar. Because humans are very weird. They're just very weird. So possibly, right? And I say this, I have to think in 20th century terms. It might have made more sense to build an audience and then to build this magazine on the back of another magazine. Like go hang out with Condé Nast, go hang out with, I don't even know if it was published then, but GQ, go hang out with, things that were already established. And then when you pop out, it's like, oh, yeah, awesome. I would have liked to have seen him do some writing in other magazines and get the traction. of his messages to see how they're landing on somebody else's dime before he sunk his dimes again. Independently wealthy, he could do everything or nothing and still be okay. But ultimately, you know, the founders that we work with and that we talk to have the exact same issue. Like when I say the exact same issue, the exact same issue. Oh, I love that. I love this AI summary thing. That's really cute. But they have the exact same issue. They have an idea and they pop out, you know, with the new business or the new this or the new that. But you haven't taken the time to think it through. Who is this for? Who is the audience? Could you collaborate? That's one of the greatest questions that I feel like founders never answer. Could you collaborate with people and gain a bit of market share before you pop out? We're so busy trying to pop out with the new thing that sometimes we're not sitting back assessing the old thing or the thing we didn't do or the thing we did that didn't quite work out. Like, again, the Kennedy brand, if you will, is all strategic. Majorly. But all of this is strategic. Even when the worst stuff happened, Ted Kennedy got into a car and drove it into a lake and unalives his passenger. And ultimately, I think he had a blood alcohol level that, you know, made him not be sober. And he continues to be the longest living Kennedy brother, but he doesn't get to be president. He doesn't get to be president, but he still gets to be a senator forever until his passing. Still in politics, still in the family business. See, I feel very strongly like people in the 20th century didn't have the, now let's go back, early 20th century, 1940s, they didn't have the tools that we have. Fast forward late in the 20th century, right? 1980s, 1990s, still don't have the same tools that we have, but the digital age is starting to creep up on us. That's back when the URLs were like this long. I can't even make it. They're like so long. They're like outside of the frame. And they were like, you know, www.35.67 abcdefghijk.1135. And it was like, okay, who gonna remember this? Nobody. So that being said, the digital age was up on us, right? And so again, you know, I've often talked about this thing where it's evolve or unalive. And a lot of businesses are not failing because, oh, they don't have funding. You know, I'm so sick of people talking about they need business funding. Unless you are absolutely acquiring assets, collateral assets, I need people to shut up about needing funding for a service-based business. Like, shut the whole hell up. Shut up. Because I am one of those people that believes your business should fund itself. So this, I'm going to get a loan and we need funding. No, you need to learn how to run a business. Because if you knew how to run a business, you wouldn't be walking around here talking about funding for a service-based business. Now, if you need to acquire actual tangible assets like land or a building or something, even then you may not need a loan. There's ways around that. There's creative financing and ways to do that may not require you to get a loan. But this whole funding conversation just makes me itch. And the people that tell you, oh, you can use your EIN and get a $500,000 credit line, I just want to like punch them in the face. I really do. Because they're more than willing to tell you how to get into deep, soul-crushing debt so that you'll absolutely buy their $27 ebook. Please make it stop. Oh, I feel you. Please make it stop. Please make it stop. Please make it stop. Please make it stop. For real, for real. Anyway, back to the Kennedys. Back to JFK. I think George had a real opportunity, but it needed different opportunities before it became the opportunity. And I think that one of the most horrible things, I mean, a lot of things happened that were horrible in the 20th century, but losing him, his wife, and his sister-in-law to that crash, a crash of his own doing from most aviation experts, was definitely a horrible thing. Listen, teaching everything but how to operate the business so it can be profitable by itself. Listen, won't they? Won't they teach you everything? Won't they teach you? Get this $27 ebook, learn how to use Canva. Get this $27 ebook, learn how to go faceless. I mean, you haven't even learned how to craft a message, but yet you want to go faceless. Oh, okay. Get this $27 ebook so you can learn how to make 8 figures in 8 minutes. And people are like, oh my God, I need it. Oh my God, let me get it. And then you get it and then you're mad because it didn't work. And it's like, duh. Do you really think if somebody was going to tell you how to make 8 figures, they're going to put it in a $27 ebook and say, go forth? Mighty sneaky like. Think that through, boo-boo. But anyway, like I said, I hopped on here to talk about the Kennedys. Joe Kennedy as the original brand strategist, the original social media manager, the original, and the Kennedys as the original American reality TV stars, because it's a real thing. And what we take from that, or if you want to take anything from it, take from it that strategy always trumps the struggle. I've said that for years. Strategy will always trump struggle. And so if you don't sit down with a good old pen and piece of paper, not your laptop, because truthfully, things stick in our brain better when we write them down. Even if you type it later, that's fine. But if you don't start to sit down with a piece of paper and really begin to deliberate on where you are and where you want to be and what it takes to get there. Objectives. Goals, that's cool. Objectives are what move the needle. What are you doing on a daily basis? What images are you putting out? Who are you hiring? Who are you still tethered to? Oh, I got to put out that video. One of the things that some people don't want to hear is that the reason why you're still in the same place is because you're still with the same folks. You're still in the same place because the same folks are still taking up space. Do with that what you will. But ultimately, that's all I had today. So hopefully something I said was meaningful. If I can serve and support you in any way, I'm happy to do so. My name is Stephanie D. McKenzie. I am a fractional branded marketing leader, brand strategist, and love all things communication, business, growth, and all the things. So please, thank you. Please check out the link in my bio. And like I said, if any of this worked for you, report back. Okay? Bye. I'm glad you caught it too. Bye.